For Monday, August 3 to order. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. Charles, even in your remote capacity, please.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charles. Trying to keep up with the video. Item 2 today is a public hearing to consider an ordinance amendment to extend the temporary moratorium on cannabis establishments in the town of Guilford. The board at its last meeting has indicated a desire to extend the moratorium through at least to the end of the year, while we continue to evaluate the possibilities of legalization of various forms within Guilford. To that point, I am still working on the draft to talk about if we were to put an ordinance in place, what would it look like? What are the parameters, et cetera? So that should be ready by our next meeting. But because this runs out the end of August, in order to leave ourselves time to keep the moratorium in place, we need to make a decision. So with that, I'll open it up to the public for comments on comments and/or questions from the audience. And the routine would be come up to the table, name and address for the record, and share with us your comments or questions.
My name is Peter Filardi. I'm a little nervous.
Don't worry about it.
110 Riverview Drive, and I just want to applaud the board's decision. I think there's a ton of outstanding medical research that hasn't caught up with the legislation. And I think it's wise to take a beat and pump the brakes a little bit. I think that the texture and the character of this wonderful town is at stake. And so thank you very much, and I applaud your decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Lou Rinaldi, 201 Water Street.
You don't have to stand. You can sit if you're more comfortable doing that. That's fine. That's fine.
Thank you. Again, my name is Lou Rinaldi. I'm a Guilford resident and registered medical patient in the state's medical cannabis program. In the hearing back in April at the community center, there was a lot of conflation of whether the decision point was, are we going to legalize? I don't think a lot of folks understood that the ship has sailed here, and now it's about what, if any, types of businesses, not just plant touching, but also ancillary businesses, are we considering to allow to be zoned within Guilford. As a patient and representing the patient perspective, I have a couple of concerns. From my viewpoint, first of all, the extremely limited licensed nature of Connecticut, the cannabis industry, both medical and adult use, means that we have the same 4 licensed producers now for over a decade. They're all owned by out-of-state corporations, and they all rely on a process called remediation, which treats the cannabis plant with substances such as ozone, radiation, hydrogen peroxide, and this is medicine for people like myself. So, and there's no disclosure around this. You know, when I go to the grocery store and I buy a gallon of milk, it says right on the label, this product has undergone pasteurization. They are required to proactively disclose any sort of adulteration that has occurred with the product. That doesn't happen in the current system here. So a couple of things. I would like more diversity in the supply chain, and that would include considering provisionally licensed micro cultivators in the state to be able to operate in Guilford. When we talk about the character of the town, it is a farming community. There's a rich, farming history here. And I think it makes a lot of sense to consider micro cultivators. We're not talking about huge warehouses, with massive footprint. We're talking about specifically small scale, analogous to the craft beer industry that arose after the macro dominance of the 80s. So that's something to consider. Another issue right now, I'm fortunate to have mobility and to be able to get around where I need to, but a lot of patients, there's about 50,000 of them in the state, I'm sure there's plenty more than myself in Guilford. A lot of patients don't have that luxury and would need to rely on delivery services. And currently, the shoreline area is generally not covered in terms of delivery. There's a gap there. And also the delivery services that do exist in the state are partnered up with these out-of-state corporations, which is not a great feeling when you prefer to keep your spend within the municipality. You know, I want to keep the money in Guilford. I want to keep growing, you know, the tax base. So as a patient, again, it's about more higher end product available, more effective, less adulterated product available. One way to go about that would be to allow micro cultivators and ancillary businesses as well. You know, there's other things that don't involve. I use the term plant touching. That basically means anyone who's, you know, quite literally touching the plant, growing situation. Beyond that, there's packaging. There's other types of licenses that are available. So I think, and to echo the gentleman's statement, I do appreciate the pause. I appreciate the thoughtful, nuanced consideration for all the various permutations that would be possible as an outcome of this effort. So that's really about all I have to say. I'm happy to answer any questions throughout if there's anything that comes up that folks need clarification on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
How you guys doing? My name's Cody Richard, 65 Elizabeth Street. Sit down. Still early. My first town meeting, I own a cannabis. The reason why I'm here is because the word cannabis establishment. That's widely used throughout Connecticut. The term cannabis establishment, a lot of people view it as a retailer or a cultivator, you know, manufacturer of cannabis, when in reality that term means many things, right? And I had to, cannabis delivery service, I had to be able to call and get it approved by all the planning and zoning, right? I called every single planning and zoning within the Fairfield County. I did call Guilford, was denied because of a moratorium. And I'm ancillary business, which is, I don't indirect contact with cannabis, right? So I just have an office. So that, what it's going to do if you don't extend this moratorium is going to subject individuals with licenses to go to areas outside of this region, which is going to subject the individuals living within the town of Guilford to go to those regions, which may not be so favorable, right? And that goes for both direct and indirect businesses. So just the extension of this would be, you know, obviously it is very valuable, you know, instead of just as, you know, putting the hammer down, say, we're not going to do this, right? Because there's not just us in this room, you know, there's actually the citizens of Connecticut that are being neglected. But I like to stem off with Mr. Rinaldi said about the MSOs, and it needs to come to light. So what I did was I put together a you know, direct and indirect kind of an overview for you guys, just so I didn't have to go too much into that, and I could, you know, talk about a little other things. So I'll go and give you guys got one here. Should be enough for everyone. So it's just going to outline, you know, just while you're making your decision, that there's different types of categories within the cannabis industry, you know, that should be considered when you are making these ordinances, instead of using an umbrella term as cannabis establishments, right? You know, because there's, for me, I have nothing to do with cannabis. So the town of Derby has approved me to be able to have my establishment within there because it's administrative office. The state of Connecticut has required me to have a secure office within that space in order to be able to keep my documents and such. There's no cash on site. There's no cannabis on site. It's strictly an administrative office. You would say you would deny that in the town of Derby? I mean, potentially, right? If you would use the word cannabis establishment, yes, and many towns have. When the state of Connecticut has outlined to me, Cody, have you been explicitly clear to these towns that you have nothing to do with that. And I said, yeah. And I keep on saying, the way that these town laws are written, they use the term cannabis establishment. And then once they say no on it, it encompasses everything when it's wrong. And that's not the way the law was meant to be interpreted. You know, so I'm here, I can't say that I will have a cannabis establishment in Guilford. I was looking to. Right now, I did lock something down. There are many individuals that are looking to open cannabis establishments in the state of Connecticut. And one of the things is that specific thing, that if they're umbrellaed over this one term when it shouldn't be. And then where are we left with? You know where we're left with? Norwalk approved me, Bridgeport approved me, Stamford, New Haven. That's where we're left with. So that's where your residents of Guilford will be obligated to go. Right? You know, and I just want to be able to be able to just educate, right? I mean, I understand that maybe this isn't your line of work and this isn't your field, but that's why we're here. I'm not uptight or anything like that. I'm not like, I'm more than happy that you guys are just allowing, us to have a voice, right? And not just putting the hammer down, on this so soon. So I do think there's going to be great benefit to extending this, right? And I'm more than happy to offer any type of insight that I can within this industry, if need be, in order to help your decision and or come up with some type of maybe an ordinance that would fit your needs, within the town of Guilford. So that's what I got for you.
Thank you,
Can
Cody.
you answer a quick question?
Yes.
What is your business that would require people to come to one of those remote locations?
They wouldn't.
So well, you just said people would need to go to Stanford. What is your business?
Absent
Oh.
delivery services
Oh,
here.
you have a delivery
Well,
service.
so I have a delivery service, so which doesn't bar me from going to any town in Connecticut. But you would say like if
Delivery service. I
Right.
got it. I
Now,
didn't
if you,
understand.
yeah, so if you were to say no establishments in Guilford, right, for example, now you're subjecting all of your residents to go to those Stamford, Bridgeport, Norwalk.
Go to them by phone or email or,
No, by go and drive to them because right now there's no delivery. I didn't get that out, I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm just trying to understand.
Right now there's
ultimately
delivery.
Your business model.
Right now, I'm sorry about that. There's limited delivery in Connecticut. There's one other delivery service which is operating, in and around specific areas, Hartford and
Manchester.
Right, Manchester. So as for me, I'm 100% owner of this cannabis establishment. I'm a general lottery winner. I'm not a social equity winner. I'm not any of that. So I have the opportunity to be able to use that to help. I do have extensive community ties. I do have a plethora of documents submitted to the SEC, Social Equity Council right now, and the state of Connecticut in order to receive my final license. So right now, I was talking in terms of cannabis establishments being allowed that within the town of Guilford. And if there wasn't, right, for example, then you would be subjecting your residents to be able to go to these cities, right, to go get their medicine, which is all I was saying. So right now, we are working to get, delivery on the road, so those residents don't have to, but that's not here at the moment. If that answers your question.
It sort of does a little without dragging this on too far. Well,
Well-
if you have a delivery service, why does somebody need to go somewhere?
No,
Well,
he's
wh-
saying absent us allowing any more, any establishments here.
Yeah,
We are effectively prohibiting delivery services in Guilford.
as things
So if
stand.
someone has, in order for someone to get the product, they have to drive to Branford. Or they have to drive to neighbor.
Right, or somewhere else.
Well, my
allowed.
delivery service doesn't mean my town that I'm operating in doesn't confine me to delivering in that town. It confines me to having an administrative office within that town, all right? But how you are grouping cannabis establishment, the term as a whole, and let's say you were to, not go through with that, that would encompass delivery services, packaging services, that would encompass manufacturing, cultivation, a lot when it shouldn't. And all I'm saying is if that happened, and let's say it would be just very beneficial if you were to allow, those types of businesses within Guilford, and just in order to be able to, read through the how the law it currently is, because it's not written correctly. It's just not. It can't encompass everything, and it shouldn't.
I think you may recall there were 11 points, types of businesses that were described to us in the document provided by Shipman and Goodwin. And one of those was delivery.
Yeah,
Remember?
I just was trying to understand this particular circumstance.
And I don't know if this is the right time, but I know I had a lot of questions about delivery because we're familiar with all the safeguards that happen when you go to a retail establishment.
Okay, so I'm more than happy to touch on that a little bit.
Is that appropriate for this? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, please.
so what as a delivery service, in order to be able to, like, safety and security of delivery, right? Is what you're saying. The people that place these cannabis orders are gonna be, receiving those orders. It's not gonna be someone else. We've created a prevention, misuse, and diversion plan in order to limit any of those things. The state of Connecticut has allowed me to develop an app. This app has been able to upload a state ID medical marijuana card along with other information prior to a delivery even taking place. The state of Connecticut is relying on dispensaries to go and verify medical marijuana patients. For example, recreational is required to have a state ID. Medical, you're required to have a state ID and a medical marijuana card, right? So those are two levels of delivery. So if you were to say, okay, I'm adult recreational, like youth delivery, the only thing at the end road that you would be able to, have to provide is your signature. It would have to be you, and then the ID that you signed up with our service for, and that you signed up with the dispensary for, so we can verify exactly who you are. And if not, at any moment in time, the driver has the right not to, to cancel that order if it's not the same person at the end of the road. So those safeguards are in place in order to be able to complete deliveries. And personally, why is it that you can order alcohol, but you cannot order medical marijuana? Why is it that I go home to my Uncle Lou every single day with stage 4 cancer and they give him a medical marijuana card, but he can't get it? Why is that, right? And I'm sure there's plenty of residents in the town of Guilford with ailments that are currently using medical marijuana. And they're subjected to going elsewhere. I'm not operational yet. So the town, the residents of Guilford don't have that option yet because the MSOs don't want it to happen. They want control of it. They don't want me to be able to be on the road. On a bigger picture, that's another discussion. So there's again, there's extreme benefit to extending this, right? I think that maybe the views of this and the term that has been being used is just right. Yeah. So I'm just here to offer any type of help that I possibly can, from my own experience, that's what I could speak about. I can speak with, I have an agent in Connecticut. I do this every single day. This is my life, this is my business. And, but aside from that, this is what I've loved for so long. And I don't like to see that, the Connecticut residents have been being burdened by these multi-state operators, right? And it's just, what if someone in Guilford was given the opportunity to have one of these, licenses to be able to start this business and they can't start it in the own town that they live in to help their own residents? I mean, that should be looked at, right? We're putting the power in these multi-state operators' hands and taking it away from the residents of Connecticut and from the towns of Connecticut. It's ridiculous. All right, and a bigger picture of things, to be honest with you, right? Let's not take that away.
Awesome.
Right? Appreciate it, guys. So if that's it, you have my information on there, and you reach out at any moment in time.
Very helpful.
And honestly, I'll offer any insight that I possibly can for you guys, to be able to help you make the best decision.
Appreciate that.
All right?
Good, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Right?
Anyone else?
Matt, can I just say
Charles?
something? Yeah, I just said that, I'm sorry, I missed that fellow's name, but he kept bringing up medical marijuana. And my understanding, what we're looking into and examining is the establishment of retail sales locations. Not medical marijuana is not part of this discussion. I understand that the medical sales can be ancillary to any new location, but that's not part of what we're supposed to be discussing, I don't think.
Well, I've got it. Charles, it is all cannabis related enterprises is what we are considering for the moratorium at this point, and we'll be considering in terms of allowing or not allowing when we finally make our decision. That would include medical marijuana, which is currently prohibited in the town of Guilford by our planning and zoning code. So Charles,
Okay, well, that's where I was going.
Yeah.
I thought we were under control with the medical side and then we were dealing with the retail side, but okay, I understand where you're going.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Come on up.
Hello, I'm Sue Heidinger. I'm at 93 Bittersweet Circle. And here are my fancy notes. So I appreciate all the remarks that were made. I'm here to say that, to make note of the fact that when the state passed this marijuana cannabis legalization bill for ages 21 and over, it was not by an overwhelming majority. And Connecticut nationally is in the minority of having made this decision. So it begs the question, how wise or how prudent is the decision? And although it's legal, I'm glad that we're pausing to consider whether Guilford will host cannabis retail. And I do not disparage the medical need for things.
Appreciate it.
Great appreciation for that. But there is an access, although it may not be easy. I see that online. They're saying that you might even be able to order online and have it delivered. I noticed that our neighbor to the east of us, Madison, voted in May to not have any establishments of any nature, medical or otherwise. I personally think that's a wise decision. I think the impact on Guilford can be quite challenging. There's a lot of documentation out there about impaired driving, actually increasing anxiety. There's studies out of Denmark leading to links to psychosis, bipolar. I think it will put an additional strain on an already strained police department that has not fully staffed, 6 vacancies. And I think even in recruitment for filling those positions, a future officer might be more attracted to Guilford to know that they wouldn't have that as an additional thing to deal with on their plate. And we've all heard of the tragic accidents that have happened with people who are under the influence and have impaired driving and have killed pedestrians. I think that might be something also to consider. And there are some other issues too that unfortunately at the state level did not get enough attention. But it's legal at 21. We all know about the studies that have said there's not even full brain development until you're 25 to 30. What are we doing to our young people? What example and what message are we sending to our teens? We know that in these types of situations, just like with alcohol, there will be legal age buyers that will distribute to our minors. A tragedy, a real tragedy. I'd like to share with you something very personal to me. I had 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. My one son, Joshua, got introduced to marijuana as a teen in this town, and he suffered with anxiety. Eureka, I have relief. Not everyone that takes marijuana has an addictive nature, but my son did. And it was the essential example of the gateway to drug addiction. And he fought a long time, went to year-long programs several times, was an outstanding, sweet young man. And he could never get rid of his anxiety or the addiction. And he succumbed in 2018 with a bad batch of something that contained fentanyl in it. That's just my personal story and the loss of a wonderful young man. So I ask us to consider the enormous impact of how one action can be a slippery slope to another. I really will be praying for wisdom for the board as you wrestle with this very difficult issue. I would just like to restate, this is not to turn a judgment or a mean disposition toward those who get relief. And I think that's been well documented, that there is that. But I also think that Guilford making a decision to have these establishments is not where we ethically and morally need to go, even though it's legal by the state. And I implore you to follow what our neighbors have done in Madison. And I thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for sharing that story with us.
May I?
Yes, this is not gonna turn into a.
No, absolutely not. I just wanted to.
Not a debate.
Not at all. Couple of things. You mentioned Madison. They did prevent retail, but they had a thriving hemp cultivation. They have licensed hemp farm, at least one of those within Madison. Blue Star is the name of it. It's doing well in the community there. I understand that Guilford also had a survey with over 1,000 respondents where the response rate was, I think, 66% in favor of allowing cannabis businesses to be zoned within town. You know, 2/3 majority, I think, is pretty significant. I also understand that there's additional efforts underway to sort of capture sentiment and, you know, certainly appreciate that. But I think that the 2/3 is a big factor as well. And certainly my condolences for your tragic loss. That's nothing, as a parent myself, that's something I can't even imagine. But I think in terms of, you brought up at the outset, the ordering online and the deliveries and whatnot. So you are correct. There are currently unregulated, unlicensed delivery services operating within the state where the provisions of the law and the regulations associated with cannabis are not in effect for those. And I think that is where the risk that you've highlighted exists. And to bring to bear fully regulated and licensed delivery or other ancillary businesses for that matter, I think there, as this gentleman mentioned in his testimony, there's safeguards in place, regulations defined by the Department of Consumer Protection to prevent cross-contamination with fentanyl, for example, or, you know, underage access to deliveries and things such as that. So with the horse being out of the barn, as you highlighted, I think there are some common sense approaches that we can take to prevent tragedy and to mitigate risk and to minimize the potential negative impacts. And I think everyone who has spoken so far has been in agreement that we appreciate the pause and the due consideration being taken for all these matters. So that's
Quick, I'll be very, very quick. I just want to say thank you. All right. I'm sorry what happened to your son. Honestly, like it is tragic and it happens to people I know. Right. It's not a good thing that's happening. I don't understand it. I don't agree with it. There's one thing that I would like to point out though. Your son didn't have a dispensary, a regulated dispensary to go to within Guilford. Right? Now that's what I'm saying. These dispensaries are regulated. These dispensaries will not have
I
any
need
issues
to
with.
clarify. Marijuana was the start of his slippery slope. He went to hard drugs.
Okay, not
right?
like some people
Yes,
put,
it
okay.
wasn't
Thank you.
solely marijuana. I hope that I have
Okay.
made that clear in my statement.
Well, I just wanted to say
It was
that,
clear. It was, you made it very.
okay, well, I just wanted to say that there's,
Thank you.
right, there's obviously that it's that security. Like, for example, my Uncle Lou, he can't go to the dispensary. I would never go to a corner store or to a person and get him. I wouldn't. You would have to go to the dispensary because of the security of knowing what it is, right? That's all that I wanted to point out. I'm sorry, I had a little misunderstanding about it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, right?
Yes, boy. Bob?
Good morning,
Good morning.
Robert Meehan, White Birch Drive. Nice to see you in a suit. We officiate basketball
Yeah.
together, so often we see each other in stripes.
I've got a jersey in my office.
Okay. So Matt, I think since I was at the last meeting, you kind of have an idea where I'm coming from out here. And I have two grown sons. Fortunately, I haven't lost anybody to this. And but what I still do is I officiate the boys basketball at the high school 2 or 3 nights a week for the kids who don't make the varsity team. And I just watch these kids, these games get over close to 10 on what they're deciding to do instead of going home. And I hear some of the things that are being talked about. Having my past been always in pharmaceutical development, I understand that 1,600 votes of anything doesn't mean much in a town the size of Guilford, especially when you shared the demographic that was sort of in one direction. I think I got that straight at the last meeting. I'm sure there are some safeguards in place so that there can be some controls on how to get this. But these kids, I just don't see the benefit of saying yes right now. And these kids don't need another opportunity not to go home at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. And if Madison, as this gentleman just said, if they have the ability to grow it, and if we have the ability to buy it in Branford, you know, this isn't like another Dunkin' Donuts, you know, we have to put another one in. We just don't. The other thing I just want to talk about is there's two things when you're looking at something like a drug of this nature, okay? My background has been in drug development. It's called the therapeutic window. It's all about risk versus reward. And when you're doing this, you can see what your window of that is. That's one of the reasons when we see a pharmaceutical ad on TV, you have a minute of all these things that could potentially happen to you. If we could come up with something saying this is the reward, it's really easy to get to Branford. And if the prices in Branford go up and someone's already growing it in Madison, I think we've got the geography thing figured out. We don't have to go to Norwalk. And I'm just very, very, very much concerned about what this means to, I know your daughter at the dog park, what this just means to people and what this can become as we continue to say, all right, well, it was legalized, so it must be good. There is tons of information that shows long-term effects of when this is started, okay? And I think that's something that should continue to be looked at for the welfare of the kids in our town, and I know you care about that too. That's my point.
Thank you, Bob. What else? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing at this point. We will return to it on item 12 on the agenda, which is actually the vote to extend it. Public forum on anything else on the agenda. Hearing none, let's move on to approval of minutes. Item 4.1, July 17, 2023, regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second, any comments, questions, suggested changes?
I was absent.
You were absent, okay. So let me try your minds. All those in favor, Charlie?
Aye.
Those in the room?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries, one abstention, recusal. 4.2, July 19th, public information meeting. Is there a motion?
Second.
Second. Comments, questions, changes? Quite honestly, I thought that session went well.
Me too.
Full discourse, people were able to ask the questions that they not necessarily were happy to hear the answers of. But nonetheless, I thought it was, and it was what, 3 hours?
Mhm.
So it was excellent. So, all right, let me try your minds. Charles?
Aye.
Those in the room?
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries unanimously. Item 5, Board of Education Director of Operations, Cliff Gurnham, 5.1, consider and take possible action on the purchase and installation of 9 18-foot tall galvanized poles at 6 schools for the security enhancements from BMP Construction under the Gordian Council CROG bid. That's the Capital Region group. Cliff, there you are. Good morning.
Yes. Good morning. Thanks for having me. So this is a continuation to our security enhancements throughout the district. We have established these poles. We actually installed one at Baldwin as the first trial for the security enhancements. And what these poles essentially do is warn incoming staff and bus drivers that there's an incident at the school and not to approach it. So we're looking to install 9 more of these poles throughout the district. Those locations have been reviewed with the town engineer, and they have approved those locations. So the standing building committee reviewed the scope and the costs and recommended moving forward and awarding the work to BMP Construction under the Gordian bid in the amount of $30,472.92.
Cliff, is there a motion?
So,
Second? Second. Comments or questions?
Cliff, I don't know if this is a relevant question or not, but are these, we're enhancing the cell reception at Lakes, right?
Correct.
Is this like a repeat? What I'm trying to get to is, will it enhance any reception in the neighborhood? Because I know the whole neighborhood has issues up there. Is this like a repeater that will enhance more than just the school, or is it just a school situation?
Right. So the repeaters that we're doing, which is a separate project from this, will only boost the cell phone coverage within the school itself. And these
Okay.
poles that we're establishing and installing, they have no correlation with that project. It doesn't enhance or do anything with the cellular service.
Okay, I'm sorry then. Okay.
And Cliff, why are they called lockdown sign poles?
Because when we activate the lockdown system, it will flash a strobe and has a message stating not to approach the school. And then it also, depending on the location of it, will have horns on it to broadcast to sports fields or recreational space for recess, for example, that there's been an activation of the system, so that the people outside the building know that an event has occurred within the building, and then they take their appropriate steps from there.
Unfortunate, but sounds like it's part of an overall security enhancement program that is being evolving and being enacted.
Correct. Yes.
And that's a necessary piece to make that happen.
Yes, it is.
and they're just for the lockdown. They're not going to be used to advertise any other kind of message, right? It's strictly if there's a lockdown.
Correct. It's not a scrolling message board. It's just a placard that says, when this strobe is flashing, do not approach the school.
Yeah, that's a great point, sir. You do not want that to
No.
be shipped away
Right,
with
right.
things that
So
people aren't.
fades
paying
in the
attention to.
background. Yeah,
Inconsequential.
yeah.
So that's a hard yes on that, Cliff?
Correct. It will not, there's no changeable message board on that. It's strictly just a placard that states when the strobe is flashing to not approach.
It seems really essential, and it's something that never crossed my mind, you know, all the conversations we've had about security, so.
Thanks, Cliff.
Anything else?
Yeah, Cliff is about 65,000 left on the authorization, and this uses half of it. Are there other open authorizations? I mean, it doesn't leave much of a margin if anything else comes up. But
This should, as far as we know, this should be the last of the additional cost to the project.
Okay. Anything further? All right, let me try your minds. Charles?
Aye.
Those in the room?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Cliff, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Item 6, Police Chief Chris Massey. Discuss and take possible action on the purchase of 45 department issued sidearm. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
Thank you.
So thank you for entertaining us this morning for this request. I know I came last year and discussed a capital request for transitioning to a different sidearm platform for the police department. We'd be transitioning down a caliber from the 45 caliber sidearms that we have now to 9mm. And we're also taking this opportunity to present an upgrade to our sidearm program, which actually is going to enhance both officer safety and public safety through the implementation of a red dot sighting option for our department issued sidearms. So extensive research went into this. We have our cadre of use and force instructors / firearms instructors that have all taken a look at the different options that are out there. We actually trialed a couple of different firearms up at our range and actually polled the personnel that work for us just to see what the best option would be in terms of comfort, ease of use, just the simple mechanics of these new firearms. And we did elect to go with the Glock platform, which is a very reputable brand used widely throughout the world, particularly by law enforcement. In contacting Glock, they actually reached out they provide us with vendors that are in the area to provide pricing, and which I did send over. There were 3 quotes that were received, and they're all the same price of $904.96, I believe was the
Yeah.
quote per firearm. And we also researched around the country to see other departments around the country that have also transitioned to this particular platform, which includes both the sidearm and the sight together, which represents somewhat of a cost savings. And finding that at least 3 other municipalities also transitioned to the same package for the same price. So this appears to be a standardized Glock pricing package that they offer out through their vendors. So the request is going to be that this be approved as a sole source. In addition to the pricing, there's also the trade-in value that was applied through these different vendors, which is a variable number. Amongst the 3 vendors, the highest trade-in price that we got was $250 per firearm for our existing firearms to trade those in. So that drove our selection of Amchar Wholesale, believing that that's a unique trade-in value that they're providing versus the other vendors. So respectfully, that's what we're going to be asking for, is to treat this as a sole source vendor and respectfully approve the purchase of these firearms.
Thank you, Chief. Is there a motion to approve the purchase of the Glock Model 45 sidearms for a total price of $40,723.20 with Amchar Wholesale?
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
comments or questions?
I have one question. The old firearms, are they being destroyed?
No, so, and thank you for asking. So I was actually in contact with the vendor on Friday as well. So any firearms that we have the option to trade them in to this vendor for $250 per firearm, as long as it comes with the requisite number of magazines. Also, we're exploring another option where, and we did this back in 2009 when we transitioned firearms. We actually allowed for a program for the officers to purchase their existing firearm for the same value. So essentially what we would do is we would offer for the officers to purchase their existing firearm and also trade back any surplus. And actually what that does for us is we're trying to do this in an effort to save money on the training side. This is a fairly dynamic shift in how the officers are trained to utilize their department issued sidearms, particularly it's a change in the platform. So not all sidearms operate the same. And also the sighting picture, this is going to be changing from traditional iron sights to a red dot sight, which is going to require additional training time. So if we're able to utilize both of those options, it actually allows us to extend out our time frame that we'll be transitioning officers over to this new platform in an effort to reduce the replacement costs associated with training. Rather than doing this in a couple-week time frame, we could spread it out over a month or 2 and hopefully keep those costs down while still providing the necessary training.
What do you think the total value of whether we trade it in or allow the officers to purchase? What do you think the total
The goal
financial.
is to bring $10,000 back from our existing firearms. We have 40 right
I,
now.
well, I think it's admirable, especially about the educational side of using them for training and that type of thing. I would just ask personally, and it's my personal opinion or whatever, but when they're at the end of their life of any use in training or that type of thing, that for $10,000, we consider destroying them just so there's that many less firearms in existence in our world, frankly. And I just ask you to consider that.
Charles. Okay, anything further?
Yeah, I had sort of a slight variation on that same topic, which is if it goes through as you proposed and some are either traded back to the manufacturer or the wholesaler in this case, but some are sold to our officers, that would be limited strictly just to the officers of this police force.
Yes. If
Those inside sale.
yes, that would be just for the officers, and essentially what that does is any surplus that we know we have, we can ship back to the vendor within the agreed upon time frame.
Okay.
But any of the sidearms that are going to be purchased by the officers, we can spread out that time frame where we can collect payment, and then as soon as they're transitioned over to that new sidearm, they can take ownership through the process. We do all the transfer paperwork, all the sales paperwork. I work with finance on that.
Again, I would be opposed to any of that kind of stuff, but okay.
Thank you, Charles. All right, let me try your minds. All in favor, Charles?
Aye.
Those in the room?
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Item 7, Parks and Recreation Director Rick Maynard, 7.1, consider and take possible action on the award of bid number 14-2223 Long Hill Parks Athletic Field Drainage System. Rick, floor is yours.
Good morning. Just before that, Matt, I just want to thank you for allowing us to use the town hall for the bathrooms for the concerts. I'm hearing a lot of positive comments, how much better it is and the footage on it. So people really appreciate that we have them open. And thank you for agreeing to do that.
My pleasure.
I'm sorry, I don't want to delay the meeting, but how did we manage to, I mean, I know the concept, but how did we manage to do it security wise?
I hire one of our custodians to be here.
Oh, okay.
So he's there in the hall so that they only can go, they can't
Right.
wander around the building or go upstairs. He's right there. So the Long Hill Park Drainage Project, we had one bid from US Pitch Care. And what this is really extending what we did in 2012, when we put drainage on the left field of the baseball field. And that really has been very productive. It's helped a lot drain that field down some. So now we want to extend it north toward the practice football field because it's been the same problem. It's wet and there's a lot of, that's the only space youth football has for practices. And there's many times we've had to cancel because it's been so wet. And so so the proposal is to extend about 100 feet north, 130 feet north of the baseball field. When I walked it with the Wetlands Commission, it was good thing, bad thing was, after some of the heavy rain we had, and the entire field was wet. It was just wet because of the timing of the storms and everything. So I did get a change order request to, what would it cost if we did the whole field. I'm not going to ask for that because I think the cost is so much way beyond what we budgeted that we really should probably go back out to bid for that part of it. But I just want to let you know, we did look into that as another option. But with the scope of what we put out, US Pitch Care bid was $33,485. We have $40,000 budgeted, so it's under budget to do the let's call it phase 1. And we'll come back for phase 2. It's just for the change order was another $43,000. And I'm talking with Pete about that. Just like we really should rebid that if we're going to do that. It's too much to to just put it in through the purchasing policy.
Change order that exceeds the original quote.
Yeah, by a lot. So, so the quote for the scope of what we scoped out, we're under budget. This is pending Inland Wetlands Commission approval. Like, as I said, I walked with them on a Saturday morning. They're meeting on Wednesday night. So I'm just requesting that you folks approve it pending their approval Wednesday. And the bidder contractor, he could start next week or the week after. We really need to do this August, September at the latest, while it's still relatively dry before we get into the monsoon seasons. And youth football is aware of it. They know that they'll be disrupted for about a week while we do this, and we'll have to move around other parts of the field. But they know it's a long-term benefit, so they're willing to make that sacrifice short-term.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Second. Comments or questions? Hearing none, let me try your minds. Charles?
Aye.
Those in the room?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Rick, thank you very
Rick,
much.
actually, before you go, to Sandy's point, the music program has been fantastic. Thank you. And for all your folks who've been able to put a lot of time and energy into that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, the next two will be good too. The Eagles on August 20th and Eagles tribute.
I'll be,
And Julie
yeah.
Brothers tribute, August 27th. But yeah, they're good. Thank you. And thanks for this approval. We're gonna be able to drain the swamp.
Oh, geez.
I was
Oh,
waiting
wow.
for it. You know, the punster. I'm gonna get some T-shirts for you.
He was waiting, he was waiting.
It is.
Okay, item 8, discuss and take possible action to approve 3 additional economic development business enhancement grants from ARPA funds. There were 3, as you may recall, I think Sherry was closing out the program with one last round, and we had 3 additional businesses apply, which took us over the 25,000 that we had originally allocated. So is there a motion to approve the allocation of 3 more it's $1,000 apiece, so that for Craze, the Guilford Agricultural Society, and Seaside Investments, all will be able to take part in it. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any comments or questions?
I think there has been, it's a great program and it's well run and Sherry's put a lot of energy into this. And it's noticeable, the improvements
Yeah.
that have been made. And again, appreciate the effort that's gone into this and I think it makes sense to get these 3 in.
Get along, that's right. Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Let me try your minds. Charles?
Aye. Aye.
Those in the room?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Item 9, facilities engineer Steve Nydorf, consider take possible action to award bid number 132223. Yes, okay, it was 142223 earlier. Guilford Free Library slate roof replacement. Steve, good morning.
Good morning. Town recently went out to bid for slate replacement at Guilford Free Library. We got 4 bidders back. Those were presented in front of Standing Building Committee on August 1st. And their recommendation was to present the bid to Silktown Roofing for the amount of $197,000.
How does that compare with what Rob had?
It's 100,000 less.
That's what I thought.
He gave us a possible highest sum of 300,000.
Yeah, you know, this number's kind of small and
And
wide.
I remember he was surprised at that, but then, anyway, we got a nice surprise today.
And we've worked with Silk, I feel like Silktown is a name.
Yeah,
that's
they've
come up
done a
with
lot for the
school
school projects, yes.
Thanks, Steve. Just one quick question on your memo. You use, maybe this is just a stray word here. You say, recommendation to award Silktown Roofing the apparent low base bid. What?
Their base bid was lower, but if you add in the alternate, there's another company that's lower.
Okay,
But in presenting it to Standing Building, they felt that their alternate number 1 pricing was too low to be a realistic.
the other
number.
bidder.
Right.
Oh,
So I just wanted to cover the bases.
Understood. And I always think there's some value in working with someone the town is familiar with and
Previously
satisfied with
with,
their work. And so they're close enough, value pricing wise, to make this make sense.
Yes.
Does the alternate number 1, is that part of the same project or can that be contracted out to someone else?
It could be separate. It would just be easier while the roof's off to have more access to the, the soffit trim and stuff, which is right below the roof, you know, but if need be, yes, we can do it afterwards.
Just the fact that there was one, I mean, if standing building committee thought it was so low that it didn't make sense, then obviously not, but, you know, maybe a way to save 5-10 grand. It makes sense.
And these are genuine slate.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
so in addition
Yeah,
to the
historic.
aesthetics of that,
Yes, historic.
you're looking at 75 to 100 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good decision.
All right, is there a motion to approve and the award to Silktown Roofing?
So moved.
Second.
Further comments or questions? Hearing none, let me try your minds. Charles,
Aye.
those in the room?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, item 10, discuss and take possible action on noise control ordinance variance application for the community dining room, which is tomorrow.
That's
Tomorrow.
right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yep.
In going back and forth, Tracy has been working with the community dining room folks. They have obtained all, they provided all requirements to date, if I'm not mistaken, Trace. The indemnification, the COI, as well as acknowledging that they will have porta potties there as well. Great.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tracy.
I'm glad that happened because it was in the paper before we actually had finished.
And then noise ordinance, it looks like they're gonna have a DJ.
Yeah.
I mean, and the hours that we're
It's
really talking about is 5 to 7.
7,
Yeah.
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 Not as late as last night's concert.
Which was fabulous.
It was great.
Okay, I think this is great. I appreciate that everybody pulled it together and checked all those boxes the same.
Yeah.
All right, is there a motion to approve the variance?
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Second.
Already.
any further comments or questions? Let me try your minds. Charles,
Aye.
those in the room?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. I'd like to add an item to the agenda. We'll call it 10.1, and that is for the board to approve a resolution related to an application for a 2023 steep grant. The grant will be to the benefit of the Guilford Housing Authority for capital projects, including additional at one of their facilities. This is, the steep money is a state program where towns apply for funding on behalf of organizations like the Guilford Housing Authority and or our own properties. I think the last steep grant we had went to do the parking lot behind the stores on Whitfield Street. So that was about 500,000. Charles, you probably remember that. If I'm not mistaken. So we are, the Housing Authority put together the grant itself. Karen and I are in the process of reviewing it for accuracy because our name and my signature goes on it eventually. Is there a motion to add that to the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Let me try your minds. Charles,
Aye.
those in the room?
Aye.
Aye. Now, to the question itself, the resolution will be basically resolved that First Selectman Matthew T. Hoy III be and hereby is authorized to accept on behalf of the town of Guilford a 2023 Connecticut steep grant in the amount of $216,760 for Boston Terrace. And further resolved that First Selectman Matthew T. Hoy III is hereby authorized to enter into and execute any and all agreements, contracts, and documents necessary to obtain said 2023 steep grant with the state of Connecticut. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, let me try your minds. All those in favor, Charles,
Aye.
those in the room?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Item 11, discussion of art flags on poles on Whitfield Street leading to the marina. Folks had an opportunity to take a look
Did we
at that?
skip 10 on purpose? Noise control ordinance?
No, we just did that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was it.
That's the
That was community dining room. Sorry about that.
Don't worry about it. Discussion of the art flags. I think we had forwarded along to you the summary from the resident who proposed that. Although I don't see it here on the agenda. Okay.
I thought like there might have been an email, but
Yeah,
I remember this coming up at one
We
point.
chatted about it.
Okay.
why don't we, I want to table it?
Well, it's a discussion,
The
but-
proposal,
We discussed it.
yeah, the proposal came directly in, and I thought we sent that out
I may have just missed it.
via
I
email, so
apologize.
don't worry about it. The number of emails we all get on a daily
This must have been at the meeting I missed, because it's all new to me.
You didn't get an email either.
I don't remember. No, I don't know anything.
Trader, do you recall if we sent this out?
I don't know. I'd have to look. I couldn't find it in my files, but it may have
Okay.
gone out in an email. I'll double check.
Okay. Well, I think that the devil is in the details with the proposal and what she's looking to do, which is basically to put, and I've got some in my office. I think I shared them with Sue and Charles after the last meeting. I'll be happy to share those with you guys and show you those. So I think probably tabling this until everyone has a chance to read the proposal itself. Again, this is, it's a wonderful idea. To display artwork on flags on the poles going down Whitfield Street out to the beach, which is beach, and to the marina area, which is one of the most traveled pathways on a daily basis. Plus people walk it, ride it, cycle it and run it. Sometimes we run it, right?
Now then.
No, but fast walk. So why don't we table it until the next meeting? Is there a
Sounds
motion?
fine.
Is there a motion to
I
table?
mean, is there, there's
There's
not
no
a
urgency.
seasonal or the holiday.
No.
It's just sort of general beautification.
Yeah. And I think it's probably going to require forming a committee to work on it. I'm not sure I have staff capacity to plan this, so. Yeah, I think that probably, the apparent chair of that commission is probably the person who recommended it. Right, so.
And the benefit would be aesthetics.
It's aesthetics, yeah.
Literally, okay.
And some of the scenes were beautiful, like the grass island shack, and various other.
The only concern I have, and this is not necessarily that happened in Guilford, but sometimes you go through other towns and you see these flags and they're kind of torn and faded. And so
we
the
do.
ongoing, whatever the management of them is, whether they come up for 5 months and come down and then new ones, I don't care. I just want to be sure that they don't get forgotten about, because for a long time we had American flags hanging on the poles. Maybe we still do, but sometimes they look pretty terrible. And anyway, I'm not saying this would happen, but
No,
we got
it
to make
is
sure
something to be
that we,
cautious about.
yeah.
Well, look, we do seem to be discussing it, so I'll put in my 2 cents. My immediate reaction is that what the most important thing on that stretch of road is pedestrian and bicycle safety.
Yes.
And to me, something like this, by definition, it's a distraction. It's meant to draw your eye. And I actually meant to do it this weekend, didn't have a chance, but if you drive down any street in the center of town, there are sandwich boards and there are, people expressing their views on various things in their yards. There's so much signage. I think it's a great idea, and I think there might be a more appropriate spot for it. That's just my immediate reaction without having seen it.
That's right. And, I think we would include the Safe Streets Task Force, the police department, in the deliberations on that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something we want to do by ourselves. And that stretch of road, the number of signs on that road is unbelievable. You drive down it and count them. It's something like 40 signs between road signs, caution, it's just absolutely a lot of signage.
A lot of
down
signs.
there.
I'm just gut reaction. I'm not sure if it's worth all the resources that you mentioned to come together to make a decision on something that's aesthetics on the street that's already beautiful.
All right, is there a motion to table?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Let me try your minds. Charles?
Put Charles up with the space bar on.
Hi, I'm sorry.
Hey,
Hi, that
that's
was
a-
on mute, yeah.
All you gotta do is hit that space bar.
Those in the room?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously.
The
Item
iPad,
12.
the finger doesn't line up always.
Item 12, consider take possible action on an ordinance amendment to extend the temporary moratorium on cannabis establishments in the town of Guilford. Is there a motion to extend the moratorium through to December 31st of 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, let me try your minds. Charles?
Aye.
Those in the room?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. Item 13, discussion of Pride Month proclamation for June 2024. I do have to say, Sarah Salato, who organized the event the first time, is very organized. We're 10 months away, and she's nailing down the details on next year's. Karen put together the proclamation. We don't have to do anything on it today if you haven't had a chance to look at it, but I think this is for the month of June, which is Pride Month throughout the world. And this is a proclamation that we would all sign on to if that was your pleasure. And so Karen did a great job putting it together. So again, are you okay with it? Folks okay with it?
I had just a comment, something to discuss. I'm all in favor of doing this.
Yep.
All the whereas is, the first one, which was educational for me, I did not realize that the reason that June was Pride Month is the Stonewall incident in Manhattan.
So mission accomplished.
Yeah, right, exactly. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is uprising. I've seen it referred to as Stonewall riot. I don't know. Would this be as meaningful if we just took that first whereas out? Or would it lose part of the meaning?
Would you be better off if it said to honor the Stonewall event?
Uprising.
Well,
Okay.
I don't know if it needs to be in there at all. And this is not something that would make me, if everybody felt that that was an important part of this, I wouldn't vote against it for that, because I do so strongly feel that this is important for us to do.
Well, the second paragraph is could be an opening paragraph as well.
It could be, yes.
I could go either way on it.
Yeah.
I don't really care.
Same here. If you're uncomfortable with it, that's fine.
I'm a little bit uncomfortable, but I don't want, maybe
I'll tell you what we do. Let's take it out. And then I'm gonna run this by Sarah and a couple other folks just to make sure that it's acceptable outside of our own little world here. Does that work?
that works.
Good feedback back.
All right. So we'll proceed with that out, and I will share that. We'll share that with Sarah, and then we'll bring it back here for approval. What do you want to approve it at this point?
Well, it's listed as discussion, so we just did
We
that.
just discussed it.
And maybe get the feedback, and we can, without beating it to death, get it back on the agenda, and if they're good and everybody's.
As you pointed out, we do have some time.
Doesn't hurt us to
Exactly.
loop back.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Item 14, appointments and resignations. Act on a resignation received from Chris Robinson from the Marina Commission.
I accept that with appreciation and regret.
There you go, and I'll second it. He's changed from voting to golfing. So I assume we're gonna see him come on the golf commission. So. Chris has developed an amazing passion for golf. It's inside baseball, but anyway. It's moved and seconded. Let me try your minds. Those in favor, Charles?
Aye.
Those in the room?
Aye.
That motion carries. 14.2, act on a recommendation to appoint Robert Harrington as an alternate to the Planning and Zoning Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire on February 28, 2024.
I'd like to move that one.
You got it, Charles? Is there a second?
Second.
Sue? Yeah, thank you. Let me try your minds. Charles?
Aye.
Those in the room?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. Item 15, request for the use of town property. 15.1, act on a request from St. John's Episcopal Church to place a sign on the green advertising its Bluegrass Festival taking place August 26, 2023, with a rain date of August 27th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Let me try your minds. Those in favor, Charles?
Aye.
Those in the room?
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries unanimously. Bluegrass Festival, that's gonna be fun.
That's a great idea.
That's a great idea. Committee reports, Sandy?
I had copious notes and I left them home, but I'm gonna do my best. We had a very productive meeting of the Housing for Economic Development Plan Committee, also known as the Affordable Housing Committee. We had it in early July, and we had a report from Aaron, and I'm sorry, I forget his last name, from NeighborWorks New Horizons, about the status of the Woodruff project, which, you know, I feel like I say the same thing a lot, but it's just taking more time than we had wished, but and the current I hate to say delay, but the current issue is working on the floodplain heights of the buildings to be in compliance with deep. So they're working on it. It's not been neglected or put to the side. It's just the paperwork. And I believe after we get this last little glitch at this moment resolved to everyone's satisfaction, we can get the money, or they can get the money to start the actual work. Is that kind of what you took from that?
Yep.
Yes, okay. And Matt brought up the possibility of developing a few more standalone affordable houses on this town-owned Sawmill Road property. I don't know if you want to say anything more about that now, or?
Yeah, we could certainly do it. Well, there is a parcel of property on Sawmill, as Sandy just said. Just as you go on the Sawmill, on the left, you go across the bridge, there's a parcel of property on the left-hand side, it's 11 acres. The town picked it up as part of the property where Howard Woods Affordable Housing Complex is, the Apple Tree, better known as Apple Tree Lane. And it abuts the back end of the bus depot on Howard Road.
Is the bus depot property our property?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it appears to be that we could fit in 6 or maybe 7 of the cottage style ones that are going in up on State.
Yes.
So what we have done, the town has applied for a CDBG grant. As you remember the grants we've gotten in the past on the housing rehabilitation grant and then the grant for housing diversion. This is another CDBG Small Cities grant for affordable housing. We applied for about $1,000 for the grant, $100,000. I'm sorry. No, it's $1 million. Yeah,
Ooh,
it's $1 million.
getting better and better.
It's for pre-development. It's for pre-development work. And actually, we hired a consultant to put the bid together. You might recall that we hired Lisa Lowe and Associates that did that, did the original bid for the housing rehabilitation work. The anticipation is that if we get the bid, we will go out for development qualifications and development concepts. We'll probably define that in our RFP, what we're looking for, affordable home ownership. And we could probably get pretty close to what we think we want to have and have the developers, the potential developers apply or respond to the RFP. As a contribution to that, the monies from the CDBG grant would go to the developer to offset some of the costs, the affordable housing costs. That developer would also be able to apply for funding through the Department of Housing to help to offset costs, as Chris Whitmer is doing, as NeighborWorks New Horizons is doing. So it's an opportunity for us. It would similar to what we did with the NeighborWorks New Horizon. The land would be donated to the developer as well, which, like the anticipated, not anticipated, but the property that NeighborWorks New Horizons developing, that will be on the tax roll. So these properties will be tax producing as well. So we had did some preliminary site work, engineering, look up through Janice Blasiak and I think it was Mike Ott, and it looks as if we can get 6 or 7 units up there. So it's in the early stages, but got things rolling to see whether or not we can do so. With all the housing that's being built in our town today, it's so little of it being affordable. we fall further behind the curve.
percentages.
So wherever we can do something, we should do, as well as, and you know that currently contemplated zoning code rewrite changes includes affordable housing set aside requirement in the zoning code. So
Proposed change.
proposed
Yeah.
change, that's right.
The last part of the meeting, we talked about the possible charges and responsibilities to the Affordable Housing Committee in relation to things that are coming forward, probably in the zoning code changes dealing with inclusionary zoning, fee in lieu of, percentage of fee in lieu of, establishing a trust for the fees if they are to be collected, and who would manage that, how would it be managed? Those are big items, but we have to, start thinking about it. And with that, to link that is, again, this, whether the committee should become a commission. And Christy Rubin Dunst, who's been a member of the committee since the start, since I was started on it, she's agreed to be co-chair with me, which is great because she's got a real enthusiasm for this and is helping me immensely and helping all of us immensely. And she's already had a preliminary meeting with Peter Barrett about it. And, so that's so, because that, if the zoning thing goes through, then our committee has to be aware of that and figure out how we're involved or not, and what to what level.
And we have to have I think we have to have a formal committee. Your group is an ad hoc.
Right, it's an appointed committee, but it's not a commission, and we don't, that's gonna be up to the selectmen. I realize I'm like double speaking here, but it will come back to this group, whatever happens, obviously, we as selectmen make the final call on all of that, because I think a commission requires an ordinance. Right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and I remember Charlie saying he doesn't like to grow government, right, Charlie?
Yeah, I know, but
I took
do,
your comment before you could.
yeah, I think you hit it on the head that, it's something that we have to deal with. And there are just so many sides of it and so many different ways to approach it that it probably does require, a group of people concentrating on it, and maybe the commission is the way to go forward to formalize it and give it some more credibility and dedication.
Yeah, and that commission will have a role. I don't know that it would be the exclusive domain of that commission. I would think not. But when we establish a affordable housing trust fund, which the zoning changes include the developer's right to pay a fee in lieu of developing the units, and that contribution would go to an affordable housing trust fund to help other developers, get over the hurdles of the costs of providing them. So
it's just becoming a bigger and bigger issue that, we should control it as completely as we can going forward, and having a group of people dedicated to that, it's just becoming more and more necessary.
And, I do have citizens, not that many, but people do come up and say to me, they act as if the Hubbard Road apartments, that the town is doing that, and that we, that's part of our affordable housing plan. And I said, the person doing that has a perfect right under this 830G, and you're trying to explain that to them. And then I try to explain that if the more that we get involved, the more control we would like to have over it. And I'm not speaking against that particular project, but if somebody doesn't like that project, they're kind of blaming the town. And at this point, we're trying to get around that. That can happen. It's legal. So that's the way it is. And the final thing I would say about the meeting that we had, there's the other effort through SCROG with a paid consultant to encourage towns that are trying to get to this 10% to have small individual personal community conversations with citizens to kind of talk about these issues, so that people are aware of what's behind it, instead of just lumping affordable housing, either we must have it all, we must have none. People need to be educated about it, and they can be, and they want to be. So that's one of the ways that we're trying to do it. So, see, usually I have no reports, so you're
This is
probably
big.
surprised, right? Even without my
Pretty,
notes.
pretty good for it.
I know, for no notes. Thank you.
You. Anybody else? Correspondence?
Oh, Park and Rec. Oh, my God. Oh, could you please step up here?
That's why I'm here.
Yes, I'm talking a lot today. Sorry.
Either that or Matt's trying to
The
figure out
other
why I'm in the audience.
I was thinking it was the other thing. So this also falls under committee reports.
Yes.
This was that ad hoc, for whatever word we want to use, where I went and met with the Park and Rec Commission and Rick and Ellen Clow to talk about the managing the program fund. And we had several meetings and Mary Jane was involved in most of them, and she was a key participant. And we think that we have something to bring before you. At the last meeting, and you correct me if I'm saying this wrong, the commission represented by Laura Hartman, the chair, and Rose Dostert, a member, seemed to be happy with what we came up with. So I'll let you explain it.
So there's a couple components, excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat. So we've agreed with the Park and Rec Commission that we'll bring that down to a level of $200,000. They've always kept a level in that account to manage things as they move forward. So we did agree bringing that down to $200,000. I think we maybe need a couple more meetings to figure out how to get that to that point. But a couple things that we have talked to them about and been agreed upon. The first is program fees that come in through that fund, such as exercise classes or things like that. Starting this fall, 2.5% of those fees will be transferred to the general fund operating to offset the Park and Rec budget on the general fund side. And that is meant to cover some overhead, electricity, the building itself, some staff, whatever. So we've agreed on that 2.5%. At this point, we estimated it to be somewhere around $20,000.
Coming in as revenue.
Coming in to offset.
And when we talk about to augment staff, it's not like going to be put into the reserve for personnel. It's just going to come in as revenue, the way departments bring in revenue.
So the second thing we talked about and we've agreed upon is that that fund should be managed similarly to how we do our budgets. If one program comes in a little too high and another program comes in a little too low, they offset each other, and that's what the undesignated portion of that fund was meant for. And I bring that up because we will no longer be subsidizing the meals program. The undesignated portion of that fund will cover the money that they're normally asking from the town. So it was a little harder sell, I have to admit, but we got that in. So even starting 2023 in last year's budget, we did not make a transfer to the meals program. We are using the money in that fund to offset that.
And we made a point that all these recommendations, which sound good and we're all in agreement, we're going to look at them. Maybe this assumption that they can cover the shortfall in the meals. Maybe we're too, maybe we need to at some point. But we said to Rick and the rest, we're not going to not have the meals. You know what I mean? And one way or another, they're going to get paid for it. But this way seems to make more sense.
Sandy, are you talking about the Meals on Wheels or just the meals that are served at the Park and Rec?
The Park and Rec meals. So like if you go for breakfast
Or senior.
Okay.
meals, something like that.
All right, so this
Yeah,
is
does not affect Meals on Wheels. Meals on Wheels is not run through this account.
okay. So what you're saying going forward then, that the town will not be contributing to the meals that are available at Park and Rec.
Correct. We will not, there's a subsidy right now in the Park and Rec operating budget, which covers the shortfall.
How much was that number offhand, round numbers?
35,000. It's been as high as 60 they've requested. And right now, because there's a healthy balance in that fund, we felt that it was appropriate to do so. The other things we talked about were capital items. The Park and Rec Commission, I think at some point felt like, okay, we have this money. This is how we can get, some of our programs. All of our some capital coming. All the capital comes through here. They never use their program fund on anything that's not approved. But
Okay, now, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I do have another question, so.
But let her just finish this one capital thing.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
Charles?
go ahead, yeah.
So we explained to them that the Park and Rec Commission is not a for-profit organization, that the goal is not to make that money, and that they should be coming to us for all of their capital needs through the general fund like every other department. So once that fund comes down, obviously we're gonna have to maybe do some capital projects to bring that fund down, or whatever might be decided upon, but once it's down, hopefully transferring this revenue on a regular basis will keep the fund down to some extent. And like Cindy said, we did speak to them about having these conversations so that, regularly. So the Park and Rec Commission every quarter is going to take a really good look at the program fund and see where that is. We can meet with them regularly to see where things are going.
And sometimes the revenue in that fund, they collect all the camp money, but then they have to then pay out the counselors. So sometimes it swells. It looks, yes, and you think, oh my God, but then it goes down. But it's still been, I think, a little more, it's been growing a little, well, we know all the reasons. That's taxpayer fee money and we want to get it back, defray it back to the taxpayers or whatever the word is. So.
Do I have a
That's it.
minute?
Charles,
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Charles.
Yeah, a couple of comments. You made the statement that it's not supposed to be a for-profit organization. And I really compliment you on, especially that 2.5 going towards, general town expenses and that type of thing, and the efforts that you made to, I don't want to say rein it in, because I think it's more to bring it in a line with the rest of our town accounting practices. And I compliment you, and I think it's good going forward. And also your comment about perhaps it's a work in progress and we got to look at it periodically. Well, what I'm trying to get to is that I would not be opposed during budget process or whatever, having something in there to subsidize some of those meals. I know it's not supposed to be for profit, but I do think some seniors depend on those, even though they come in and that type of thing, and it is a social opportunity for everybody. So I compliment you on where you're going. I think it's good, but I wouldn't be opposed to reviewing it in the future and potentially having to help in some small way. I mean, 35,000, like we did last budget cycle, I think we added some help over there in the kitchen and that type of thing. I was a little concerned about hearing how one employee was putting in so many hours outside of his compensation, and I'd like to get those things aligned more properly too. So, it's a work in progress, and I think I compliment you in that we've made some great strides and taking a look at it going forward. I would not be opposed to helping out with some of that food program if necessary.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify that there's no change to the meal program. The meal program will run the same way, and it still needs to be subsidized. But while the program fund has money in it, a surplus, that's where that subsidy should come from, instead of us putting more money back into that fund to to offset the meals.
Agreed.
Agreed.
I think Charles' point is we will continue to
Yeah,
support
right,
the
yeah, absolutely.
subsidization
We're not
in
gonna
some
let it
form or
go
fashion.
backwards.
Yeah, and I just wanted,
Whether it's through the program fees or through general budgeting.
right, we're all trying to.
Yeah,
And
that's
make
where
sure
it's trying.
we're politically.
Yeah,
correct
I didn't
here.
want to turn it into a strict,
I'll support
you
it.
know, I didn't want to turn it into some strict business situation where, you know, people couldn't
Yeah.
afford an egg
Yeah, Sandy
sandwich
and I were
type thing.
Sandy and I were very clear through all of our meetings that this would be a discussion that is ongoing. It, you know, maybe at some point,
It's dynamic.
2.5 is too much, or maybe it's not enough. You know, every decision, we felt that we would go back and revisit to assist the Park and Rec Commission in helping manage that fund.
But, and just for the meal program, Charles, the commission had raised the prices 50 cents. And the people who come, a lot of them said that it's the users, the eaters, the diners, they're all like, why did you bother with 50 cents? You know, why don't you just up it $1? And so I think I think the commissions, they haven't decided this yet, but I think they're going to make it, they're gonna make it $1 for, just for bookkeeping purposes, and most of the participants were comfortable with that, so that's a little bit more coming in on that side, that's all.
But that was their
Okay,
decision.
but I think
That
we're all
wasn't
on
for
the
us
same
to-
page. I just- Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to work with them, so that, you know, we can help bring that down, but it will require some ongoing meetings, and we're not gonna go buy things just to spend it down. You know, it's not, gee, we have an extra 100,000, let's see what we can buy. We want to be smart over, you know, as you know, through the budget process, there were some things that we put in our general fund and some things that we said we would use program funds for, so we have those allocated. So it's a moving
formula.
target. It's not gonna be fixed in one day.
There was a third commission member who's been part of this, is it Bill? I'm sorry, I've lost his name, but he's been very helpful, so if you're listening, you know who you are, and I apologize that I can't think of your name, but he's been at all the meetings as well.
Great update. Thank you. Anything under old business or new business? Public forum? Anyone wishing to address the board public forum? No. All right, is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss and take possible action on appeals from residents in accordance with section 247-31, right of appeal, article 7, elderly tax relief program? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. We try your minds, Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
those in the room?
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries. If Steve, everybody else can drop off. And we're inviting Becky in.
Are you gonna, I'm gonna change the door.
To come out of executive session. Motion to come out of executive
So
session.
moved.
Second,
Second.
let me try your minds, Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
those in the room?
Aye.
During executive session, there were no motions made, no action taken. But as a result of those discussions, the board has declined to grant an appeal on the case that we were reviewing. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Try your minds.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you.